Thank you for tuning in today to the McGill Minute. This week is National Environmental Education Week, which is the nation's largest celebration of environmental education. Thursday, the 22nd, is also Earth Day. To do our part in environmental education, we are taking time today to talk with Jonathan Herman, an environmental planner at McGill. Jonathan has over 15 years of experience in a wide range of park and stream restoration projects. Today, we want to pick Jonathan's brain on stream restoration. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us. So let's jump right in. What is stream restoration and why is it important?
Thanks, Mary Frances. So, stream restoration is basically work that is done to restore streams to a more stable and healthy condition. The underlying cause of a lot of unstable and unhealthy streams is erosion, or in some cases, deposition of sediment in the channel. And this can lead to problems like decline in water quality, losses of aquatic habitat, or increased flooding downstream. Also, sometimes eroding stream banks can be a hazard if there's nearby buildings or infrastructure. So, I think stream restoration is important because it attempts to mimic natural stable streams and natural processes to provide a long term solution to address these problems.
What causes stream bank erosion?
So there are two types of stream bank erosion. One is caused by increases in the volume or velocity of water in a channel. The other type is basically gravity pulling soil down the bank and into the stream bed. A lot of fairly common development activities that we do, such as installing culverts or building large parking lots, can increase the volume or velocity of water in the stream. And often erosion will start at the bottom of a slope, and then this causes the stream bank to become steeper. And eventually, the bank becomes so steep that loose soil from the top of the bank just starts to fall into the stream bed. There's also the role that vegetation plays in this. Woody plants can prevent erosion up to a point because the above ground portion of plants, like the branches and the leaves, slows water down as it moves through the channel. And then at the same time, the below ground portion, the root mass, holds soils in place. But there's often a breaking point where the loss of topsoil and the steepness of the slope makes it impossible for vegetation to survive. Once you lose the vegetation, the erosion problem just becomes even worse. Really, it's kind of a chain reaction of things that can happen that causes stream bank erosion to become a bigger problem over time.
So, with this week being National Environmental Education Week, what steps can we take as stewards of our environment to reduce stream bank erosion?
I would say if you're a property owner who has stream or river frontage and you notice bank erosion occurring, a restoration project can be a really great opportunity to make an improvement to environmental health. Actually, a really cost effective approach is just allowing a buffer of forested vegetation to grow along streams, which can slow down and absorb surface runoff before it gets to the channel. On residential and commercial properties, sometimes just avoiding mowing and maintaining areas along a stream can allow a forested buffer to regenerate over time. There's actually a lot of farms that have added cattle exclusion fencing to prevent cattle from tearing up stream banks. But also, I would say looking at ways to reduce the amount of surface runoff flowing to streams is important because that can actually prevent bank erosion from occurring in the first place. There's a lot of ways to do this through stormwater management, reducing unnecessary paved surfaces and turf areas, and really just thinking more about how we build on land that reduces the overall footprint and preserves natural areas.
Can you share some of the techniques involved with stream restoration?
Yeah, so many of the techniques that are involved with stream restoration are really about using natural materials and replicating natural processes to prevent bank erosion. There are several native woody plants that naturally grow along stream banks and in wetlands that have the ability to root from cuttings of the stems. So, one technique that takes advantage of this is called layering, which involves placing the cut stems along the bank parallel to the stream channel. This not only holds back the soil from washing down the bank, but also the cuttings will take root over time and grow into the bank, providing even more stability. There are also techniques which involve placement of natural stone or, in some cases, logs across the channel, which direct water away from the banks and create pools, which are a great way of improving fish habitat. There are also more traditional methods of grading, installing erosion control matting, and seeding the stream banks, which are used to produce a more stable channel shape. But most projects will really involve some combination of these techniques depending on the situation.
So, how does McGill typically get engaged in these types of projects?
I would say there are three ways we typically get engaged with clients on this type of work. One is through property owners who want to restore a stream, and it's often for the purpose of improving the health and diversity of the fish population. We worked on this project several years ago for a property owners association with a fishing committee for this very purpose. And it involved improving trout habitat in a stream that crossed across some common space within their development that was used for recreational fishing by people in the community. The second way is property owners who have done work or some kind of activity in or around a stream and not gone through the required permitting process and all the steps that would normally be required to avoid or minimize stream impacts. And there's clearly a noticeable change or effect on the stream because of this. And in these cases, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality will issue a notice of violation, which requires them to restore the stream. And so the property owner will hire us to plan and coordinate the effort to address the violation. And we've actually worked on several of these type of projects recently that have involved property owners who, through some of the activities they were doing, caused a lot of sediment to wash into a stream channel. And a major component of the restoration effort was sediment removal and restoration of the original elevation of the stream bed. And then the third type of project we get is from municipalities and utility authorities looking to protect infrastructure they are responsible for, such as water or sewer mains. And we've worked on a couple of these recently that involved a buried utility line running along a stream with an eroding bank that had actually exposed the line. These mostly come to us from existing relationships that McGill has built with municipalities over the years by helping them with designing and upgrading water and sewer infrastructure. You know, protecting the infrastructure from bank erosion has ended up being just another service we offer to existing clients.
What kind of challenges do you typically encounter along the way?
I think one of the challenges with a lot of stream restoration work I found is with the grading activities. I would say most restoration projects require some level of grading. Often it's actually pretty complicated because you have to remove all the water from the channel to do grading. So you basically have to build these little temporary dams on both the upstream and downstream side of the graded area and set up pumps to dewater everything. And then at the same time, you have to divert all the water coming from upstream all the way around your work area. This whole setup has to be running the entire time you're grading in the channel, so it's a really complex process, and there can also be a lot of site constraints around streams, like large trees or wetland habitat that you don't wanna grade near, and then there are also areas with, like, steep topography that can be challenging because with grading, you often need large equipment like excavators to be able to access the channel and have room to work. You have to put a lot of thought, I think, into how to grade and really when to grade because sometimes it just isn't feasible in certain areas. And I've found that one thing that helps is working with an experienced stream restoration contractor because they can often tell you what's feasible from a construction standpoint and they'll provide ideas that can make things easier.
So, what about regulatory requirements? Are there any that trigger the need for stream restoration?
There are several ways that stream restoration can come up as a regulatory requirement. If you are temporarily impacting a stream channel that is regulated under the Clean Water Act, like for instance, burying a utility line or providing temporary construction access across a perennial channel, restoration is often required by the permit. And usually this will just involve, when things are finished, returning the stream bed and bank to the original grade and revegetating the bank. Also, I mentioned earlier that there are projects we work on due to a notice of violation from the DEQ. These often involve a landowner, not getting the required permit or not following permit conditions, and their activities end up causing a stream to be impacted. And in my experience, restoration work is pretty much always required to address the violations in these cases. And then there's also stream restoration done for what is called compensatory mitigation. And basically, this is a permit process that allows for permanent impacts to a stream, like installing a road culvert, for instance, to occur as long as a similar stream within the same watershed is restored to compensate for the loss. There are actually large restoration projects that are done on particular streams, and they're done solely for the purpose of selling what is called stream mitigation credits to anyone who has impacted a stream in that particular watershed and needs compensatory mitigation to comply with regulatory requirements.
How do you monitor a project to ensure long term stability?
That's a good question. Monitoring requirements vary somewhat from project to project, but the methods used to ensure stability would usually include annually going to set locations along the channel and recording measurements of channel dimensions, the amount of vegetated cover, the number of woody stems. There's actually a method where we take samples and classify the size of sediment, and all these things are compared from year to year to see how stable things are. And often this type of monitoring will last for 5 to 10 years. But there are actually some projects where monitoring isn't a requirement and it's kind of just left to the discretion of the landowner. With that said, we always encourage at least some level of monitoring to ensure the project goals have been met and to identify any issues with stability.
Thanks, Jonathan. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I would just add that streams are really dynamic and complex systems. And I've found trying to fully understand the processes behind them really involves knowledge of a lot of different things. So I think the key to a successful stream restoration project is about putting together a diverse team of engineers, environmental specialists, landscape architects, construction administrators, and experienced stream restoration contractors. Together, I think they're able to fully understand the existing conditions of a stream, identify the best approach for improving those conditions, and then successfully implementing the project. I think the diversity of McGill staff and the wide range of knowledge that we bring to stream restoration projects really helps us to address the project goals and provide the best results for our clients.
That's great. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for shedding so much light on stream restoration for our podcast today. For the audience, be sure to visit our website at mcgillassociates.com to learn more about McGill's environmental services. You can also listen to additional episodes of the McGill Minute. As we close, I would just remind everyone to share it forward. Tell a coworker or a friend what you learned today. and how we all play a critical role as stewards of our environment.